Are you thinking about getting back with an ex? I did. Over and over again. And I made a lot of mistakes. So here are 10 mistakes I made that you shouldn't. I know what heartbreak feels like. With that true heartbreak that makes you feel like you're dying. You're going to actually feel like your heart is physically breaking and you can't get out of bed. You can't stop crying for days. What's awful is that I did that to myself. I broke my own heart and my ex's. When you get back with an ex, you need to realize that this is not a rosy relationship. You are not seeing each other for the first time. You don't think that they can do no harm because you know they can. You've already been there. You've seen their dark side. When you get back with an ex, you have to address the reason for the break before you're able to move forward. Essentially, you have to move back before you can move forward. You also have to address the distrust that was created by leaving. The sheer act of leaving creates tremendous distrust because you are shaking that foundation to the core. If times get tough, if things go wrong, are you going to leave again? How does he know you're not? Especially if you left for something that wasn't seemingly a big deal, like if it wasn't because of cheating or because of something horrible that happened. I know because I've been on both sides. I lost trust in a relationship because he did something that was not okay, and it made me not trust him. I was angry, and I left. But when the anger subsided, I still had love there. And we got back together and we ran for it. We were going to make it work. We didn't even address the old issues. We were like, forget it. Let's put it in the past. Past is the past. Let's just move forward. And we did. And I never could get over it. It was always there, lurking. I didn't trust him. And he didn't trust me because I left. And we never addressed it, and it ended, and it ended. I've also created that distrust. And not because I cheated or did anything like that. It was because I left. And I left in a time when he needed me most. And when I needed him most, to be honest. He always hates when I say to be honest. Because he says, are you usually lying? If you have to say to be honest right now, does that mean everything else you say is a lie? So, anyway, we both needed each other and I left. So I broke the trust. But I still loved him and he loved me, and we had this intense chemical attraction. And despite the fact that we both moved on for a while, we ended up getting back together. But I had never addressed the reason for the break in the first place. We never got over that distrust of me leaving. And I wanted to move forward. You know, I was sitting there thinking, we love each other. Why can't we move forward faster? We've been through so much together. Let's just move forward. Why can't you be vulnerable with me again like you were at the beginning? Why can't you be sweet and loving like you were back then? You wanted me back. Now you have me back. Now grab me. We know each other. Let's move to the next level. What's the holdup? Yeah, we knew each other. He knew me as a leaver. I would get frustrated. He wouldn't give me what I wanted in the relationship, which was moving to the next level, or was being nice to me, or giving me time and energy and emotional vulnerability and all of the little things that guys usually do for girls and girls give back in relationships. He wouldn't give any of that to me. So I would leave over and over and over. And he would consistently take me back, and I would think we're moving forward, and we wouldn't, and I would leave. Now, sometimes it works. It worked with my ex before. I didn't understand. And look at Justin Timberlake and Jessica Biel. They broke up. They got back together. They got engaged. They got married. They're seemingly happy. But that's not the norm. And that's what you need to realize. If you're getting back with an ex, you need to fix the problem first. So here are 10 mistakes I made that you shouldn't. Number 1, I didn't acknowledge or attempt to fix the root of the problem, which was the distrust. The root created other responses from him, like him not being emotionally available, being cold, having a lack of interest in what I had to say, and didn't try and do the little things that would make me happy. But regardless, I created the initial distrust, and I never addressed it. Number 2, I created an environment of distrust. He never knew if I was going to leave. He never knew when I would just pack it up. And sometimes I would leave after we were having a great weekend. And the reason in my mind was, we had a great weekend. Why don't we move forward? Let's take the next step. And he wasn't willing to. He was still shut off. And I would leave because he was emotionally unable to commit. But the fact is, I wasn't committed to the relationship because I kept leaving. He never left me. He never gave up on us. I did. Number 3, I demanded that he get over the past and move forward with the relationship. Now let me tell you, demanding never works in a relationship. It never does. It just pushes you further and further and further apart. You're going to get even less. He used to say, stop asking for what you want and you'll get it. And I didn't get it. But now I get it. And that is, if I just don't always push my agenda and just be present, then he would be present and we would be able to move forward. And if I addressed the root. But my constant pushing didn't even not help. It pushed us even further back. Number 4, I didn't acknowledge what I was doing wrong. I would only acknowledge what he was doing wrong. I became this annoying, nagging, bitching girlfriend. No one wants that. I was so oblivious of the errors in my ways because I was so focused on the errors of his. I needed to just be quiet for a minute and listen to him and understand for 1 second what he needed. But I didn't. Number 5, I didn't acknowledge that his coldness and the walls that he built up were built because I put them there. He was protecting himself from me because when I initially broke up with him that first time, he had been very, very vulnerable and raw. And I left, and he was left there, vulnerable and raw, alone. And he created walls to protect himself. Number 6, I left every time I got frustrated, which only further exacerbated the problem. Because we'd get back together and he's like, well, now I trust you even less. And I would be like, well, why'd you get back to with me then? And it was because we have this love and chemistry that we could not ignore. But still, I needed to address the problem. Number 7, I was selfish. I never asked him how I could help him heal. I never acknowledged that I needed to do anything in order to make that happen. I was so focused on what I needed him to do for me and my needs that I didn't ask what he needed from me. Number 8, I was not empathetic. I never put myself in his shoes to understand how he was feeling. Putting yourself in someone else's shoes is the best way to understand how they're feeling and what they're going through. I mean, really put yourself there. Feel what it is that they're feeling. Understand their pain. Feel it. I refused. I was so caught up in my Dior heels that I never kicked them off and put my feet into his sneakers and walked around for a bit and looked at me through his eyes and saw how hard it was to trust me. And had I done that, if I was him, I don't know that I would have trusted me either. especially not the way I was acting. Number 9, I got caught up in the blame game and couldn't accept my wrongdoings, which is very, very common in relationships. You just get into this circle of, well, you, well, you, well, you, well, you. Well, why don't you just stop for a second and think, well, what about me? What did I do? Number 10, I was so focused on the little things. The flowers, the sweet nothings, the boyfriend attitude, the doing things, those little things. And the big things. I really wanted a family, and I am getting older, and he and I had been together for so long, on and off, but so long, and I wanted a family with him, and I was too dense and too focused on my wishes to realize that had I not broken up with him over and over again, we would have had everything that I wanted and that he wanted. I just needed to stop. I just needed to acknowledge. I just needed to fix the root of the problem. And I didn't. And I would think, well, he's not the one. He's not going to ever want to have a family with me. And let's be real, Laurel, this is, you aren't just looking for a boyfriend, you're looking for a partner and a life. And so I would leave and I'd meet someone else and I would still crave him. And sometimes I would forget for a little bit. I'd break up with the other person, we'd break up, and I would go back to him again. And had I not been spinning my wheels, I would have had everything I had wanted. But I created these walls between us, and we were sitting on opposite sides of the walls yelling at each other saying, why can't you hear me? And it was because we created walls that were impenetrable. So in the end, it ended because we were very broken. I took our trust in our relationship and I turned it into tartar. But I learned, and I learned a lot about empathy and compassion and love and trust and partnership and kindness. And I will use that in my next relationship. What's sad is that I broke my own heart and his too. My therapist a long time ago asked me if you could choose between never experiencing deep love and going on and not knowing it exists or how it feels and being fine with that, or having experienced that deep, guttural love and know how good it feels and lost it and move forward in other relationships and not have it again, but you know how it feels and you have had that. Would you rather? And I said I would rather have had and lost than never had it all. I know why you want to get back with your ex, especially if it was not a abusive relationship, if it was a loving relationship. I know that feeling that you can't get over. That magnetism and chemistry and love that you cannot hide or fight and that you just wish would end. Maybe it will, and sometimes it does. But it's really rare to find that, and when you do, sometimes you get scared and you screw up and you break up, or something happens that breaks you up and you really want that feeling again. So I know why you want to get it back. And if you do, go for it. But don't make the mistakes I made.